reading comics on the subway, like that guy right there, that guy wondering why I'm taking a picture. No matter where you go, I even tried this experiment in Tokyo where could I go, how far could I walk in Tokyo without encountering manga of some kind? And it basically, you can't really go more than a block without seeing it in some fashion. Like, just ubiquity. Like this guy here, standing in the corner about to get hit by a bus. If you look at the numbers, you find that manga represents 22% of printed material in Japan. Now think about that for a second. 22% of printed material is in comic form. That's a mass medium. It's much more like television. But it goes even further than this. Daniel mentioned an article that was in Foreign Affairs, Foreign Affairs, by a Japan Society fellow named Doug McCrae. And he had this, he talked about gross national pool and how Japan's largest export is pop culture. It isn't electronics, it isn't cars. And if you sort of unpack that whole pop culture apparatus in Japan, you find that manga is at the center. Manga is at the center. So if you look at anime, obviously, the animated films, most of them begin as manga. If you look at figures, the little doodads and things, many of them begin as manga. You go to games, many of the games begin as manga. You go to television, many television shows begin as manga. So I was at a television station in Osaka, and they were all, I was talking to this one guy, and he said, well, so you came all the way from the United States to study manga? Like, why? Is it really that important? And then the head of the television network was there, and he said to this guy, who probably is now unemployed, you realize that 15% of our programming this year began as manga, right? If you look at even retail, all kinds of retail spaces have a kind of manga theme or built on manga. So if you look at what Doug says about gross national pool, it really is, this whole pop culture apparatus is a manga industrial complex. That manga is at the center of all of it. Now, here's what's newsworthy here. Here's what's interesting. Manga readership in Japan, while it's exploding elsewhere, about which more in a moment, while it's exploding elsewhere, is declining in Japan. The trend line for the books, for the magazines themselves, looks like this. Very worrisome, because worrisome if you're a manga publisher, but doubly worrisome if you care about the whole pop culture apparatus, because that's at the center of it. It reminds me of, so if manga goes, to quote, I don't know if you saw what George Bush said in sort of making the case for the bailout package about 10 days ago. He said, if we don't do this, his words exactly, this sucker could go down. It's a great phrase. But if manga starts going away, this sucker could go down. Okay, so it has big business implications. So, riding to the rescue, much to my surprise, were people like this. And here's the first takeaway. One, see? One. You see, I like lists. There are actually 4 reasons I like lists. No. Riding to the rescue are people like this. Now take a look at that. This is a photograph from a comic market, a komike, where I spent several days when I was on my Japan Society fellowship. Now look at that sea of humanity. This should be a good sign for this is a good sign for the manga industry, because all these people here are flooding in to go buy manga, to go into this giant marketplace, this convention center full of manga, racing in, so much so that they had to prohibit people from sleeping outside the night before. This is how popular it is. People clamoring to get in to buy manga. What's curious about this, though, is that they're not buying this, and they're not buying, here's a Naruto book, they're not buying this. What are they buying? They're buying home-brewed amateur manga. They're buying not manga from the big publishers, they're buying manga made by you and me, manga fans. How cool is that? You have all these manga fans buying some other manga fans. Now,